the time has come, the walrus said, to show you how that packing went. It's not going to be Linux lesson 3 because I'm going to be driving in a moment. So I'll talk about other things like my friend Hal Jordan here, the white lantern, and iFly, very important, very important. It's my child's water bottle, but I filled it with water for myself. Let me throw that in here, along with some additional hydration. We'll put Hal there, and the camera stands we're using, various camera stands options at this point. And yeah, so I'm gonna close that up, close that up. I'll show you the other side here, the boxes that I packed earlier, the singing drums, the science box. So all is good. Excellent application of the 80-20 rule. I don't have to overpack this car and grab my statistical learning book, because statistically speaking, it's better to avoid identity theft than not. I am certainly not paranoid about identity leaks and the various dangers of oversharing, because I find the reward, the potential reward, worth it. So, risk taker Mike. If you're learning Linux, you're a risk taker. You're a risk taker by moving off the mainstream platforms. That's just a fact. You're risking being, unsupported. The number one risk is you hit a problem and there's not 100 people who can give you your answers. Let me start with some water. iFly. The straw is not in there. iFly is how you learn to skydive in those indoor facilities that use the natural convection of the mountain cliffs and such that they're built on to lower the overall energy usage in order to have a high power fan that blows up, and so that you can have the sensation of skydiving with a fraction of the danger, 1/1000th, 1/1,000,000th of the danger, because there's no falling, to your death. You can break a bone, I suppose. So when I lived up in Inwood, the upper reaches of Manhattan, one of the benefits is I wasn't far from Whitehall and Yonkers and all this kind of hotsy-totsy suburban area. When you don't want to live in New York City, you got to go north, south, east, and west. Well, there's not very much east of New York City except the harbor, and west is the direction I live, and south would be going to Philadelphia, Newark, Camden, a lot of interesting cities along the way there. But if you go north, you're going to the very hotsy-totsy area. The most hotsy-totsy is not even north. It's another island near Long Island, near Manhattan. Long Island's called Long Island. The 5 boroughs. The other five boroughs, something like that. I don't know exactly. It's New York language. I was criticized for not knowing the something is up and the battery is down, and I'm like, the world is a lot bigger than it is from, one side of the island to the other, all 5 boroughs. So I got really full of myself on New York for a while. I was like, oh, the world is exactly as it is, all 5 boroughs. That's the world. I was brainwashed. I was very much mistaken, and the timid multiple people coming to an intersection. One of my big lessons to my wife as I teach her to drive is when multiple people come to an intersection, the worst thing possible is uncertainty. Someone should know who has the right of way, and usually that someone should assert it, the person furthest to the right, if everyone arrived at the same time. So I kind of violate it sometimes when I'm doing these videos, because I don't want to be in an assertive mode when I'm doing the videos. But fresh oil and chips. It's an interesting sign on the road, fresh oil and chips. Boy, stop me before I sub-reference again. In such hotsy-totsy northern communities that spring up around New York City. We've got Whitehall, where a lot of things happen. I think Facebook is where Mark Zuckerberg grew up. He was a suburban kid in Whitehall, the way I was a suburban kid in the Philadelphia burbs, right? So Yonkers is one of the more famous cities up there, though probably no one even knows anything about Yonkers, except it was referred to in the Honeymooners a lot or something, I don't know. It's a funny word, Yonkers. And there's also Ridge, I don't even remember the name of it, but there's a shopping center that's literally on a ridge there that has exactly the sort of mountain cliff that is desirable, and socioeconomic surroundings that is desirable for these rich people sports, right? Rich people sports like, karate and snowboarding and skydiving. So you can take these lessons, and my child did. It was like body confidence time. I don't know where you get it as a homeschooler, but certainly you're going to get it from me. And one of the things you're going to do is learn how to plummet through the air, how to control your body, how to have a sense of the subtlety and nuance of controlling your body. A lot of the things that come as part of martial arts, and they were signed up for martial arts in Staten Island. It was less than impressive. So, I took it upon myself to teach them subtlety and nuance of body control. Very much tied to the things that are important for that child's development. So they've been there about 5 or 6 times and are pretty good at it. I need to get them back there. That may in fact be one of the benefits of being back in Staten Island. It'll only be 2 hours away instead of being 3.5 hours away, right? So I'm an hour and a half closer, barely, because you got to go drive through the Manhattan. I got to keep it positive, my friend. Body positive. So you're suspended above a fan that's blowing up, you're falling down, it's blowing up, and you're flying. iFly is named very apropos. That's exactly what it looks like. Their logo is a great example of it is what it says. So that was around there, maybe 9 years old and 10 years olds over those 2 years. Then I moved out here. There's a bunch of other types of flying around here. The snowboarding and the trampolining and the zip lining. Consistency, right? Consistency, purpose, visualizing results. And taking those modest measures and steps along the way to achieve those results. You can't spend the kind of money it takes to go to iFly every day. So you have a trampoline. So many tangents and digressions that are not worth it because keeping positive and staying positive. Language shapes you. The language you use shapes you. The tone in your voice shapes you. Achieving the vision that you hold in your head is a function of the language that you use in the process of working towards that vision. Johnny, the street vendor, around 14th Street, big shopping area in New York City. Johnny, the street vendor, who is a Vietnam veteran. No, it's Korean War, I'm sorry. No, it's Gulf War. Geez, I got to go through my wars. Korean War was MASH TV show. It's a shame that's the most it connects to me. I got to make sure that there's things like this that my child can connect to in their education. But at least I have, pegs I can hang this on. The association. Korean War is MASH. Vietnam War is Nixon and impeachment and social unrest. And I just missed it. Peace and love in the 60s. Summer of Love, 69. I was born 1970. Probably a child of the Summer of Love. If my parents were in such squares, I would believe that. And then the Gulf War, and then the Gulf War II, of course. So, you know, Johnny the street vendor, who I bought the white lantern Hal Jordan from, that I was keeping in a box like 40-year-old virgin. And then my child says, "Can I open it?" And I have one of these moments that tests whether I am a static or a dynamic person. It was like the whole movie, the whole Steve Carell movie, 40-year-old virgin, encapsulated in that one frozen moment in time. My child sees this, sees nothing more than a toy that I know is going to come out and become part of a crap pile of toys, undifferentiated, but nonetheless, yes, you can open it. Addie, enjoy. I'd like to tell you the story of him in particular, but the rings in general, and how all the emotional energies in a human being are, in the DC universe, attributed to actual physical power sources of power. The human will, creativity, is the Green Lantern. That's where that comes from. And love is this kind of purplish thing, not red, because crimson, I think they call it for love, and red is rage and anger and passion. And black is death, and black is night. There's some interesting stories there. In fact, that's where the White Lantern comes from. It comes from a story called In Blackest Night, one of the big Green Lantern formative stories of that universe. And death was taken over, you know, and the universe is saved because the first White Lantern, I hope it's not a spoiler, I already told you that Duncan Idaho is the real Kwisatz Haderach, so machines and humans could come together, so I'm spoiling shit, so. Sinestro becomes the first White Lantern, unifying all the different color energy forces. Orange for greed, all that stuff. It comes together, equal spectrum, light. So there's some science and physics to be learned here. There's good stuff in this. Even if it's storytelling, it's good storytelling. And it's powerful. There's, you know, most of the rings need to be charged from an energy source. How does the white ring get charged? The love of life. Talk about keeping it positive, right? You're running low as a White Lantern. You just find the love of things. You find the love-worthiness of things in life. And your White Lantern energy recharges. Lessons much, DC? They say DC is for kids and Marvel is more grown-up one. DC has done some profoundly powerful channeling in the Green Lantern universe, more so than most places. So, what more is there to say? I mean, that's a lot to be said about the White Lantern. Sinestro was the first. Sinestro is an awesome character. Very dynamic. Starts out as a Green Lantern, starts out as the most powerful and smartest of the Green Lanterns, but feels that green isn't enough to bring order to the universe, that the same things that the rulers of Io, the Guardians, are trying to do with order, with human will, sentient being will. Every sentient being is represented in the Green Lantern, at least the dominant one in their slice of the quadrant. So you take the galaxy, it's a round thing, right? Spiral galaxy. You cut it into 360-degree wedges. Each wedge, the dominant sentient species gets a ring. The ring chooses the person, you know, lives up to the expectations. They come in for boot camp, boom, bippity-boppity-boo, Green Lantern. And that's just one of the energy forces that are in play. Some of them are not in play. The orange one's an interesting one because it's greed, avarice, and so there can only be one Orange Lantern. There's thousands of rings, just one lantern. Get it? All right, so a lot of emotional channeling and a lot of intellectual channeling too in the DC Green Lantern universe. That's why the movie flopped. Smarts. You gotta like smart things, like smart stories. So that's already why it's out. That's why Dune never becomes Star Wars. You know, Star Wars is the dumbed down Dune. So where do we go from there? Where do we go from there as we make the left coming up so I don't take the highway way. The highway way is a little bit longer. This is a little bit more beautiful. I shall take the more beautiful way. Gap View Drive. We're in the Delaware Water Gap. This route I'm about to take is Gap View Drive. See a connection? It's the Delaware Water Gap. That we get a view of. Nice little view. First you get a view of the beer distributor. Any more White Lantern lessons? I don't know. Well, I mean, it's the rarest and it's temporary. Oh, the final big lesson of the White Lantern. It's pretty powerful. It has all the powers of all the other rings combined, used indiscriminately. A White Lantern can dispense with a Black Lantern without even trying, for example. So, the only weakness of a White Lantern is that there is no weakness and you need to have creativity if you were going up against one. Too powerful. So, also temporary. Refer back to my video on the Lightning Bruiser. When the game goes out of whack because of a overpowered character, the game must be adjusted. You see this in Magic the Gathering all the time. Certain cards combine together in unexpected ways. You kill your fire elf to make a lightning bolt, and then you use a thing that lets you take things out of your graveyard unlimited, so you can create fireballs or lightning bolts of unlimited power by killing and resurrecting and killing and resurrecting your elf. So Magic the Gathering, I don't know, somewhere around version 3 or 4, I don't know, had to put the kibosh on these excessively powerful loopholes. Well, clearly the DC universe had to do that with a White Lantern, so it is temporary. Lightning Bruisers, characters like the Hulk, who are basically of unlimited strength and power, who also happen to have an infusion of, say, intelligence from Bruce Banner, surfacing, and then he's already very fast, but this all combines to create a way out of proportion power, especially living on Earth. When you get these cosmic powers in Marvel and DC universe, they usually go off to other places, more so in Marvel. You know, you've got these things that can interfere, like the Watcher, stuff like that. In DC, it's sometimes more actively involved. Superman is probably close to being one of those. But the game has to be rebalanced, so in the case of the White Lanterns, it's temporary. It can only be a White Lantern temporarily. I think there is now a White Lantern, because, you know, you got to sell a comic, so I don't know how DC really dealt with that, but the power limitation that I was familiar with that they put on it as a result of the Darkest Night series, where it first appeared, is that it was temporary, as Lightning Bruisers tend to be. You can be a Lightning Bruiser, strong and powerful like the Hulk, and then also fast and smart like the Flash and Reed Richards. But you cannot be all these things at once for an excessively long period of time. You must yield to the forces and powers of nature, because otherwise the game is out of balance. And did I not take my Note 8 to have the other phone at my disposal for this? I think that may be the case. I'm not 100% sure, but when I get there, I will take a quick look for my Note 8. If I don't have it, I will have to stop this recording, but it's at a good point, you know? I want to dole this out in nice little bits so that I don't bore you silly. Am I boring you silly? Is this a good video to follow learning Linux 1 and 2? Learn Linux 1. Know the history of Multics and Unix and Linux. The panic that led to panic that led to panic. The desperation that led to desperation that led to desperation. The itch that needed to be scratched, leading to the itch that needed to be scratched, leading to the itch that needed to be scratched. Always compromise all the time. always the little guy trying to stand up to the big guy. Always an underdog story. Let's see if we got that other phone and thus the code we need. If we do, I'll keep shooting the video. If we don't, we wrap this one up here. And either way, I should wrap this one up here because that's enough. Give me your feedbacks. You can see that tiny little feedback from Michael a few videos back made me start a Learn Linux series. I'll probably do the third one here. I'll find metaphors and analogies and parables or whatever your poison is for a term of parallel, words I used, doing the unpacking, sorting it away, scratching an itch, using public storage so that I don't have to have a big time crunch, so that it minimizes my impact on work, minimizes my impact on my kid. I'm doing this during the weekend now because I have the time to do it during the weekend unexpectedly. My plan was to put in some vacation time at work and use business days to do these errands. But as it is, I have this available. So thanks for joining me. Talk to you real soon. And don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to hit that button that shows you when I go live and all the other stuffs you do on YouTube.